Yeah, so that was the easy part.
Well. Is everybody, can everybody hear me? You get live, your mics, everybody's good from the media? Thank you. So we're gonna go ahead and get started. Thank all of you for joining us today. We're here today because the supermajority unpopular abortion ban proposal somehow made it out of committee despite not one Hoosier testifying in support of it. If the legislature cared about the will of Hoosiers, if they listened to Hoosiers, this bill would already be dead. But somehow it made it out of committee after being made more strict and more cruel and limiting abortion access in cases of rape and incest so much that it's safe to say that they are proposing an outright ban on abortion. This is disgusting. Doctors, advocates, women who have experienced traumatizing and difficult situations and were grateful that they had the freedom to choose, all of those voices were ignored and shut out. And thousands of voices from Hoosiers who came to the State House this week in protest were shut out. The voices of medical experts were shut out. But I guess that's the trend of the supermajority. Because yesterday, the Senate Democrat caucus was shut out too, weren't they? When my caucus put forward a minority report that was blocked from even being heard through a procedural rule, we were shut out. That's what this special session has been so far, a silencing of dissenting voices. And now we're preparing to hear Senate Bill 1 in front of the full Senate, even though we know it will harm and endanger Hoosier women. That's why my caucus is here to share the amendments we will be offering on Senate Bill 1 today, and we'll be doing everything in our power to provide as much help to women as possible as we enter these very dark times. Right now, I'd like to bring up Senator Shelley Yoder from Monroe County.
Thank you, Leader Taylor. Our caucus has over 30 amendments to Senate Bill 1, and we will be offering those today. Every one of our bills are designed to give women the assistance and support they will need and are worthy to receive in a state where forced pregnancy will be the new law of the land. Our amendments offer women compassion, support, and help during a very difficult time that will become exponentially more difficult now that they will not have the ability to make reproductive decisions for themselves. Our caucus put forth 13 amendments during committee. Only 2 were allowed to be heard, and both were voted down. Now that Senate Bill 1 is on second reading, we are offering our amendments again to provide robust support and aid for women, and also to show Hoosiers how our pro-life colleagues vote in support of things like doula services for pregnant women, health exemptions for pregnant women, a provision ensuring parental consent is not required when rape and incest occurs from a parent or guardian. I urge you to watch closely how members of the excessive majority vote on our amendments, because that will be when they show Hoosiers where they really stand on the issue of life. That is when it will be made absolutely clear whether Republicans in the Indiana Senate are truly pro-life or if they are pro-forced pregnancy. Already, members of their party have shown their hand and have shown their own inability to stay consistent in their alleged beliefs. We will be putting amendment after amendment on that vote board so every single Hoosier can stay tuned and see if pro-life Republicans will support common sense policies that provide pregnant women in Indiana with the help they will need to carry a fetus in a state where her body is the property of the state and her reproductive health is decided by her government. I now introduce Senator Tim Lannon for his next set of remarks.
Thank you, Senator Yoder, and good morning. I'd like to address another aspect of what we've been seeing so far in regards to this issue, and that's really the hypocrisy that I think has existed in terms of this matter. I'm going to give you an example of that. On Tuesday, Senator Taylor offered an amendment in committee to provide life insurance, child care tax deductions, and child support for a pregnant Hoosier from the time of conception, because this is what we are hearing from the excessive majority, that they have to have this total ban on abortion because life begins at the very moment of conception. So Senator Taylor's amendment very logically said, well, if that's the case, then we should be providing things like life insurance, child care tax deductions, and child support from the very moment of conception. And yet, what did the Republicans on the Senate Rules Committee do? They voted that down. Voted it down without hardly any comment at all. So the fact that Senator Taylor's amendment was not accepted, I think, exposes those who claim that life begins at conception for the hypocrisy that was demonstrated by that vote. Either you treat the fetus like every other person, if that's your view, or you take your nose out of women's private hospital rooms and let doctors do their jobs and let the current law stand. So, one of the amendments that we will be having this afternoon, an amendment I intend to offer, says that in Indiana, we retain the current status quo to allow women in consultation with their doctors and whoever else they choose to control their own bodies, and up to the current law, as it is now in the state of Indiana, have the option that includes even abortion. We think that to do otherwise is contrary to what we think is the will of the people, and certainly this current bill in its current fashion, the most restrictive and repressive type of abortion ban that you might have, we think that Hoosiers overwhelmingly oppose such an outright ban on abortion, and we will be continuing to fight for the rights of a woman as an individual to make the decision to control her own health care and her own body. Now, at this time, I'm going to bring on Senator Jean Breaux, who has some final comments, and then I think we'll be opening it up to questions. Senator Breaux?
Thank you, Senator Lannon, Leader Taylor, Senator Yoder. The abortion ban that the successive Republican majority has forced through committee, despite overwhelming objection from Hoosiers, will be dangerous. My caucus, Hoosier women who have experienced difficult pregnancies or reproductive issues, doctors, have all echoed the same thing repeatedly, and that is that under this restrictive policy, women will die. Again and again, I've shared statistics about where Indiana already ranks when it comes to protecting the lives of women and babies, how we're third in the nation for maternal mortality, and how an outright ban is projected to increase maternal mortality by 21% and as a whole. I've also shared that those numbers are worse for Black women who already face worse odds in our healthcare system. African American moms are 243% more likely to die from pregnancy or childbirth-related conditions than their white counterparts. Bans like the one proposed by the excessive Republican majority will simply increase maternal mortality for Black women by about 33% compared to 21% for all women. The fact that women's lives will be sacrificed due to the Republicans' total abortion ban is not okay. The fact that existing health disparities guarantee that Black women and other women of color will disproportionately be impacted by this restrictive policy, that is not okay. All the facts and science, all the Hoosier voices that have weighed in have made it clear that banning abortion just puts an end to safe abortions in licensed facilities. An abortion ban does not stop abortion, but just further limits an already limited practice. I'm angry and disgusted that the fact that women will die is not enough to stop those in the pro-life party from pushing this bill forward. I'm also angry that legislation we've introduced over the years to offer necessary services to families, to pregnant women and Hoosier mothers has been denied by the pro-life party. Representative Yoder already spoke to doulas. We have tried to get that passed, and it has consistently been denied funding, which without the funding, it's just name only. I hope Republicans are ready to do better for women now that they've decided to ban abortion completely. The amendments my caucus will be offering that you've heard about will give Republicans the opportunity to put their money where their mouth is, to support families, women, and babies in Indiana. We'll be giving them the opportunity to actually support life. I'm hopeful that my colleagues will take that opportunity, that they will choose to support our amendments and save innocent girls and women who primarily will be from poor minority communities that will be impacted by this ban and could potentially lead to death. I'm hopeful they will choose to provide access and support, compassion and assistance, love and support for life, pro-life. Thank you. We'll take any questions. Senator Leader Taylor.
Well, today is second reading, as you know. Tomorrow is the third reading of the legislation. And I think based on some of the discussions I've been having, is there's going to be true consideration for some of the amendments that we have been so far denied to put forth. So today is just going to be an indication of what's going to happen tomorrow. Well, I think if you look at the tea leaves and see what's been going on inside their own caucus, you could see that there's not a clear consensus on what they want. And I think, like I said before, when we first started down this path, it's like the dog who catches the car. They caught the car, and now there's nothing that they can do with it. They don't know what to do with the car. So you can get this stuff out in front of the public, but you should, and I don't think they have a clear consensus of what you want. Well, not only is it just waging war on this issue, the tactics yesterday used were, it was dictator-like. And when you take the voices away from Hoosiers, and we represent Hoosiers, you know, we may not be in leadership, we may not be in the majority, but we represent Hoosiers as well. And yesterday, by denying the opportunity for us to discuss a minority report that we timely submitted, followed all the rules, and then through a procedural step to deny us to even have the discussion on the floor, is denying Hoosiers in the state of Indiana an opportunity to have their voices heard. And we've seen that over and over again through this process. So we have to stand up and wage war on that, because one of the most fundamental rights that we have in this country is to be heard. Yes.
Okay. Let me just weigh in here briefly, because you raise, and your question raises, the issue of this whole process of this special session and considering really one of the most crucial issues that's ever come before the Indiana General Assembly. And, you know, we didn't come down here originally to deal with this such a hot button topic, and it was to provide economic relief to Hoosiers, not personal liberty grief to the women of the state of Indiana. So, and as Senator Taylor pointed out yesterday, minority voices shut down. On Tuesday in committee, we had so many committee amendments not heard at all. There were so many people who wanted to testify on this who didn't get the opportunity to testify about this. So to even consider this, even in a 2-week session, in fact, we could have been down here on July 6th like the governor said we could, but we didn't get down here until late July, and now the pressure's really on. So this is no way to legislate, in my personal opinion. And so I think that it's finally being driven home to the excessive majority that the overwhelming number of Hoosiers think they're way out of touch here as far as this repressive, restrictive ban on abortion that they have. And maybe they are finally going to wake up and take some of our suggestions.
Well, and I wanted to just say, it would behoove them to accept some of our amendments, because what we're proposing are common sense solutions to, we're not attempting to make a bad bill better, we're just trying to ensure that women have some options in the state of Indiana. For example, I have a simple amendment that asks that the Maternal Mortality Commission look at the impact of what this ban is having on the maternal mortality rates of Indiana. That is a reasonable request. That is something we should understand the data on if we're policymakers, and it's an amendment that they should accept, but we will see.
I don't know at this time. I'll be honest with you. I'll have a better gauge on that after second readings today. But I'm thinking they're going to have some problems with even. I mean, we're not the only ones with amendments. There are amendments being filed from their side of the aisle too. So depending on how those come out, then we'll be able to answer that question more clearly.
I think the very fact you asked that question shows how flawed this bill is. Right. They don't know, with their excessive majority over there, they don't know if they have the votes to pass it out because they're so split on this whole thing. But to have a bill that would force a young child to have to, within 12 weeks, decide whether or not they're going to have an abortion after they've been raped. There are so many children that age, young girls that age, that wouldn't even know what's happening to them. It's just a totally flawed bill at this point in time, to the point that they don't even know if it's going to pass.
We need to be very clear. Not one person testified in support of Senate Bill 1. But where we did find common ground, no one wants to be forced to have an abortion, and no one wants to be forced to have to carry a pregnancy. That's where we find common ground. And so where this caucus has landed is recognizing a woman's personal autonomy to make those decisions for herself in consultation with her health care provider. Abortion care is health care. And when we begin restricting that, women in Indiana will die. And it is time that we come together and recognize that and decide once and for all that Hoosier women deserve and are worthy to have that decision to make for herself.
Can I just speak to the question about nothing coming out of this session? I have spoken to some folks on the other side of the aisle, and they too are concerned that if nothing comes out of this session, that we will be left with what is already on the books, which I think we could certainly live with, but that would not work for them. So that has been the carrot that they're hanging over their head. If you don't do something, we'll end up with what we have. So that's the dilemma they find themselves in.
I have spoken to Leader Giaquinta. As you know, the Vice President was here earlier this week, and we are coordinating some of the amendments that we have that they may file over there in the House of Representatives. But one of the things I want you to know is in that meeting with the Vice President is that we were told that the President Biden's administration is going to do whatever they can to protect access to medication first for women, safe medication. Two, they're going to provide pro bono lawyers to women who might find themselves in a position where they need representation in order to access their own bodily autonomy. And then we're going to be doing some coalition building across the country with Democrat caucuses across the country to talk about some of the issues that we are seeing pop up in other states, not just Indiana. So this is not over, even if Indiana supports and the legislature supports a piece of legislation that's going to restrict a woman's access to health care. I don't know. There were some shocking votes on that committee, and you know, I was shocked that some of the pro-life individuals supported, because what I've always heard from the pro-life individuals is that there should be no exceptions. And a couple of their members actually voted, who are claimed to be pro-life, in support of that legislation. So I think they're finding themselves in a quagmire here. They've already got one vote on the record, at least the members of the Rules Committee. Yesterday, they should have had another vote on another bill or another motion that they somehow got away with. And then they're going to be, like we said earlier in the presentation, they're going to have to vote on these amendments. And every Hoosier in the state of Indiana will see where they are at.
What became clear in the Rules Committee is what we have sensed for many years in this excessive majority is we don't really look to science or to medicine as to what is best practice. We heard doctor after doctor after doctor explain their displeasure with the bill and try to explain the science of why. And in the end, it was just a hodgepodge of 8 weeks here, 12 weeks here, 15 weeks. We know that viability, there's no difference in viability, whether it's 8 weeks, 12 weeks, 15 weeks, or 20 weeks. There is no difference of viability. And that was not recognized or respected in those amendments. And ultimately, what that committee decided to put forth and voted to amend a bad bill and make it worse was just pulling numbers out of the air. If you're older than 16 and you're a victim of rape and incest, you're going to get 12 weeks to decide. 8 weeks to decide. And if you're younger than 16 years of age and you are a victim of rape or incest, you get 12. That kind of arbitrary decision making is dangerous, and it's certainly not what Hoosiers want, not for themselves, not for their families, and certainly not from their elected officials.
All of them. It's true. We need doula services to be funded. We've got an account available that we could put money in today. We need to protect the rights of women to access health care. We need to talk about the time period for which we have on the books today for a constitutional right. All of these amendments are important to us, and it should be important. These are amendments that we didn't just come up with out of the air. Hoosiers want these types of changes.
I can give you an example of a couple of our amendments, though, that really, if you're going to have this restrictive type of an abortion ban, then they need to have to be included. For example, on the issue of rape of a minor, there's a couple instances of rape of a minor that aren't covered in the current bill. And so under those circumstances, apparently, if a minor were to be raped, they would not have the option for an abortion. So I think that might just be a matter of it's been overlooked, perhaps, so we do have an amendment that covers that. And in another case, the bill is written, of course, says that the minor has to get the consent of a parent or a guardian before the abortion can occur. But what if it's been incest by the parent or the guardian? And we have an amendment which would waive the requirement for parental consent underneath those circumstances. So those are some things that would make the bill better and need to be included, in all honesty.
And we have an amendment that importantly conforms to the Supreme Court ruling that says that contraceptives will not be touched, and we want to make sure that in Indiana's law, contraceptives are still available to women.
For some of our amendments, yeah, I think, as a matter of fact, I think, and I haven't seen the total file list, but I think some of their members have actually filed the same amendments that we have. Yes, yes, absolutely. You know, I've worked with Senator Young for my entire time here. I think that was a hard decision for him, especially knowing how important family is to him. And so to express his discontent with his leadership's tactics on this stuff clearly indicates to me that they didn't have, it's kind of like when you have a leader and everybody's following him, and then he says, hey, we're going to walk in that fire over there, and he starts walking that way, and he looks back, and there's nobody following him. There was obviously no discussion about what this bill was going to look like in their caucus before it came out. And I think that upset Senator Young and several of his other colleagues. I think he's the one who had the fortitude to step forward and say, I will no longer be a part of this because of how the process is going. It's kind of, you know, we don't have that option, but it's kind of like I said yesterday, the process itself is being manipulated, and it should not be. This is a very, this is the most significant piece of legislation that this state will ever pass. And there was debate cut off. There were members of our caucus who didn't get to speak. There were amendments that weren't heard. And you should never do that when you're in leadership. Let me make this very clear. This is a battle that we're going through right now. The war is not over. As we look down the road and see the midterm elections coming forth, we have to be conscious as Hoosiers that these individuals may try to restart something like they started during this special session in January of next year. So Hoosiers have to go out and vote and make sure that we have an opportunity to stop some of this stuff from happening. A supermajority control creates the process that we've seen today. If we have enough membership to stop them from going to the floor and to stop them from doing certain things in committee, then we can change the trajectory of this state. So Hoosiers need to step up, seeing what supermajority control does, and say we won't take it anymore, and start voting to make sure that there's parity and that we represent what the voters of Indiana want. Thank you, and have a great day. Thank you.